Hi, this is Dr. Nick. I'm the Incrementalist here with business insights for better health, better business.
And I'm Fred Goldstein with Accountable Health, here to help you keep your employees healthy and safely reopen during this COVID pandemic. So Nick, one of the areas we haven't touched on yet is this whole issue of security and data and et cetera. And I know you've been looking into this and had some issues this past week you wanted to discuss.
Yeah, so I think what COVID-19 has done has freed up people's time, particularly on the negative side of security. So the hackers in this world, they've always been remote for the most part, although there is some sort of physical elements to hacking and gaining access. But in this particular instance, people are at home, there's lots more activity, and we've moved outside of the corporate environment, so we don't have all of the IT resources. We're maybe using an unsecured network. And sure enough, this past week, I've had 3 accounts that have been targeted and attacked with user ID and password. Good news, I have not lost anything. My accounts are all secure, so na boo-boo to those folks. Why is that? Well, that's because I use 2-factor authentication on anything that I can. What is 2-factor authentication? That is user ID and password. That's your 1 factor. The 2nd factor, the most preferable in my circumstance, is to use an authenticator app that produces a code. So I actually use LastPass. I find it excellent. It's tied in with the LastPass password manager, which is one of my other advice points here, which is don't reuse your passwords. Use complex passwords, have a password manager to do that, and have a very complex password that essentially encrypts that. If you can't get an authenticator app to work, and I believe, if I recall, I think Twitter is one of those accounts that prevents this, but they do allow you to have a 2-factor, which is based on your telephone and sending you a text message, and they send a code. How did I know all of this? Well, I got alerts to say, hey, here's your code to allow you to do what you're wanting to do, because I guess they didn't recognize the device being logged in from Bulgaria or wherever it happened to be. In one instance, it was an email account for somebody that I manage on their behalf. They had taken it to pump out gargantuan amounts of spam. How did we get alerted to that? It was all the bounce messages from systems going, well, this doesn't look like real email. So anyway, we've secured it, but my advice, pay attention to security, especially in your circumstance. There are lots of great guides. Certainly you can find some of the ones from my blog. We'll point to that in the details below. So security, primary thing. Now, Fred, I know you had some dining experiences that were, let's say, suboptimal.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. So we had one of our little trips with my wife and my son, who's still here with us, and we went kayaking at a place about 1.5 miles down the road, and you go up this creek a little ways, and they have a nice dock there, but they also have a beach you can land your kayak out with outdoor seating. We thought, what the heck, it's the evening, we'll go there and get a little bit of snack and things, and we pulled up and felt pretty good. They had the table spaced out appropriately. They had some signs up about spacing and things, and they made you go to the front and register. But when we got there, we noticed that in terms of the registration, there were no distancing recommendations or things as you went up and talked to the host and got your assignment, and then, people were standing around, they were keeping themselves spaced, but I'm noticing in Florida, fewer and fewer people are wearing face coverings or masks. So when we get back to the tables on the outside, which we specifically requested, no inside tables, please, they gave us a nice one, and it was an old wooden table, very hard to wipe down. And she suddenly said, oh, well, let me wipe it down for you real quick. And she put a few sprays on it and ran a paper cloth across it, and that was it. And obviously couldn't cover the whole table or things. But what was fascinating was, and not very good, was that all of the waiters and waitresses were wearing no face coverings at all. So None. So they're coming up and talking to you. They're going to another table and talking to them. And I'm just surprised, because most people in most restaurants that we've seen, and there have been some others that are good, are doing this. So
let's interpret this for a second, if we may. What that says is, I, as a server, don't care about your health, because I wear a mask to protect you, and I wear a mask to protect other people.
Correct. And it was interesting because as they came by, I'd pull up my face mask, my face covering that I was wearing there and stuff. But just amazing to see this today. And as you think about it, I've talked about Florida before, talked about Georgia and the Tybee Island problem. Well, Florida is beginning to open up very seriously. And now when you see behavior like this, we're seeing the numbers go up. And that's just
bad news all around. This is, we know physical distancing. By the way, kayaking, great way to physical distance because you can't get your boat because it's got this 6 foot in front of you, I think, although you can pull up to the side. So I'm sure you were physically distanced there. And then I think you also had some thoughts around gyms, right? Which I personally have had here locally. We've had some outdoor activities, huge positive for me. I find, it lifts my mood. I feel better. What was your experience?
So with gyms, I want people to start thinking about this. They're reopening, right? And we're looking at this pretty seriously with one of our clients and how to reopen potentially their gym. And you run across all these issues. So what sort of sports activities can you do in a gym? Could you play 2-on-2 basketball? Well, maybe if you were in a bubble and that was your one person that you live with or your friend potentially that doesn't have outside exposure, might lower your risk, but clearly that close contact is risk. What about when you're weightlifting? Can you have a spotter? What's interesting is I looked at the U.S. National Gymnastics Association, the team, and they recommend against spotting. So how do you train? So these are all issues that are going to come up as people get into gyms, and whether it's how close are the equipment to, do you wipe it down before and after use? How do you clean the place? How do you get airflow through this place? So the gyms really have to begin thinking about this. I haven't gone, ours just reopened about a mile down the road, but I am going to go this week to look at it and see, do I feel comfortable in this space or not? My wife is saying, you got to get working out. So I've got to either do that or get back on the bike or something else. So,
so Fred just gave away something that's going on in his household. He needs to work out. So I've maintained a reasonable level of activity, but certainly I appreciate it. We're doing outdoors at this particular moment in time. One of the things that stands out, and I know people are struggling with, is this issue of masks or face coverings. And I know that's difficult, and certainly when you're running in the outdoors, less need. So we're in the outdoors and people are not wearing masks in this setting with physical distancing. And I think that's, reasonable from a safety standpoint. But indoors, I think the guidance is probably going to be that you have to wear a mask to protect others. And I know that's difficult, but here's the positive that I found or discovered. That improves your lung function because it's resisting things. So you're gonna have to work harder to suck in the air and the oxygen. That's good news because it's gonna help you get fitter quicker.
Yeah, and I've actually remember those guys who wear those specific masks that make their workouts much more difficult, like they're at a higher altitude. So I think that's a great idea. I'm gonna pop a big old mask on me, go into the gym, work out hard, and really build that lung and cardiac function. So it's been another great week talking with you, Nick. This is Fred Goldstein with Accountable Health.
And I'm Dr. Nick. I'm the incrementalist here with insights for better business and better health.